turn your earpiece on where you can hear? Yes, and turn this on.
That would help.
From the local station, this is Friday Night Lights on News4Jax Plus, presented by Farah and Farah, featuring 1010XL.
And welcome in to the Friday Night Lights, Channel 4, 1010XL. That is Justin Barney. I'm the hacker Ryan Green. And look at the new digs here for Week 8 of the high school football season.
Only took us 2 months to get in the new studio, so they're upgrading our digs. So really good to be in the studio. It feels more professional, and we got we have capabilities to guests in here and stuff like that. So we wanted to do it from the beginning of the year, but hey, we're doing it now, and I'm happy to be in here with you.
Absolutely, and it's a big district week of high school football all over Northeast Florida. A very wet night of high school football over Northeast Florida. One game got postponed due to the weather. A beachside Fleming Island game will be made up in early November, but the dynamics tonight with the field conditions all over the area will be tough for offenses.
Yeah, and moving. I mean, Fletcher last week played down in a mud pit down at Flagler Palm Coast. They're having to do the same thing tonight against Mandarin. A challenge for a lot of these teams, because this is not for a lot of these teams, these are not games that you just look at on the schedule and say, oh, there's a practice game. Most of the games this week are district games, playoff spots being decided, things being sewn up this week for a lot of teams. So yeah, this is a big week. You don't like to have the weather, but hey, that's why they play the games. You got to play in every type of weather. I remember Bartram Trail head coach Daryl Sutherland used to say, Hayes Carline and I, when we worked together the record, Hayes would say, hey, this is terrible weather. Daryl, how are you guys going to? All weather is bear weather. Yeah. So football coaches have to look at, hey, games like tonight, we're going to be mud and rain and terrible conditions. That's the weather. You play in whatever your hand you're dealt, and I think that a lot of teams have to do that tonight.
Hey, look, we haven't had any hurricane postponements this year,
right,
so we'll deal with a little bit of weather if the games actually get played.
Yes.
Let's take a brief look back to last week. It was kind of an appetizer for a big district week this week, but what really stood out to you, Justin, about last week's action in week number 7?
Not a lot of big games. Last week we kind of covered it. There just weren't a lot of kind of meaty games on the schedule because teams. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but you go on in that week 6 area, and then that's a big district week is week 6. And week 7, for a lot of the teams, that's when you take your bye week because you kind of recalibrate, reassess for that stretch run. And a lot of teams did that last week. I think St. Augustine, our number 1 team, was off. Range, the number 2 team, played on Saturday of last week. Bowles was off. Mandarin was off. A lot of teams took last week off, and so tonight they're getting back into action. Probably my big takeaway last week Really, Beachside looked really good against Tocoy Creek. The fact that they did it on the ground, like they did last week, Vincent Gallela, career best and also a program best. 4 rushing touchdowns for Beachside against his old team. They looked really good. Rains, of course, looked really good and beaten Ribault last week 53-0. So 2 big Super 10 takeaways were those 2 teams.
And we'll get to your Super 10 rankings in a moment. You mentioned Rains. We spent a lot of time last week previewing the Northwest Classic. What a performance for the Rains Vikings, 53-0. They're already in a dogfight tonight against Madison County. We'll get to that in a moment. But again, Rains, Ribault, always a great game. And in this case, Rains with a dominant victory.
Yeah, Rains is Rains. And the Madison County game tonight, I know people look at that record and say, Madison County, you're playing a rural school. Come on. Madison County is legit. Going to games at Madison County at Boot Hill out there is an experience. So regardless, Madison County is a small school, but they can play football. It doesn't matter the year, the coach, the players, whatever. They are looking good. And here's a look at our Super 10 right now. A lot of teams in action tonight that were not in action last week. Of course, St. Augustine's my number 1 team. The Super 10 stayed unchanged from last week for me. St. Aug 1, Range 2, Bowles at 3, Mandarin at 4, Oakleaf at 5, Nice at 6, Bradford at 7, Columbia 8, Beachside 9, and Ed White 10. All 10 of those teams are in action tonight in week 8, and you hope all those teams get their games in because it's nasty out there.
Yeah, there's no doubt the weather is going to play a big factor in the games. And like you said, a lot of these teams, it was kind of a decompression week. You know, St. Augustine in particular, you look at their first 6 games, wins over Nice, Bowles, Lake City, Columbia. Last week allowed them to take a deep breath to settle in for the stretch run.
Played unquestionably the area's most difficult schedule, and you've seen them early on in the season. They elevated to number 1. They had a tough game against Riverside, dropped back to number 2, and then, oh, by the way, you stack on wins over Nice and then Columbia. To me, that front half of the schedule was absolutely loaded. You get a little bit of reprieve this week and really the rest of the way until you get into that week 11 when you got Mandarin the night before Christmas. The night before Halloween. Man, Christmas is not here already. But the night before Halloween. So really an unbelievable schedule for St. Augustine. You feel like you're almost getting a little bit of a foot off the throttle this week against a younger and rebuilding Clay team. But it's a district game. You can win a district championship tonight if you're St. Augustine.
A lot of Duval County Public Schools are at home tonight, 6:30 kickoff. So a lot of those games are already moving into the second quarter. Here's what we have so far. Impact Christian 6-0 over Paxton right now. Madison County 6-0 over Rains early on. Fletcher and Mandarin, that is a huge district game. I know it's Channel 4 game of the week, the Fletcher-Mandarin contest. Right now we have scoreless, I believe. Fletcher was driving at last check. Huge opportunity for Seatric Faison and the Fletcher Senators tonight.
Yeah, and this is a must-win game for Fletcher and our writer at the game as we drop into this game right now and take a look at our Varsity 4 game of the week. Fletcher really needs to win this game. The big running back there, Jamari Grown Man Jennings, had a big run in that game, came up limping, and he's a big runner for them. Had a 42-yard gain, I think our writers out at the game said, and then came up limping on that. Would be big if he was not to be able to come back in that game because he is a central part of that offense. They've moved the ball on the ground. They've got a really good quarterback, or really good receivers, Joshua Jones and DeAndre Stick Smith in that game. They've had trouble against better teams, moving the ball, stopping teams. It's a big test for Fletcher. You've got to win this game to have any kind of opportunity to win a district championship. You lose tonight, district championship, you're going to have to take the back door into the playoffs, and that is not an easy thing to do when you're talking ratings, points, and stuff like that. So a huge game for Fletcher over at the Crowd. This one started a little bit later due to Fletcher getting there a little bit late due to a big crash that clogged some traffic up. But Mandarin, of course, we know all about Mandarin. Bryson Wright and head coach Toby Bullock has done a good job there at that program. So we'll see if Mandarin can stay on course for a big district championship showdown with Oakleaf here in a couple weeks.
I'll tell you this, just based on the early parts of this game, Fletcher's already making a better account of themselves than they did against Oakleaf. They're 0-1 in the district. That Oakleaf game got away from them a couple weeks ago, so you know they're very motivated tonight.
Yeah, and you played well against against Nice earlier this year. They lost 22-6. Nice has got a great defense. You didn't move the ball really well in that game. If you're Seatric Faison, you're a little bit upset that you didn't show out a little bit better against those guys. Fletcher and Nice have been a really good game in recent years. So this is a big test for Fletcher. Can you move the ball, for one, against a very good Manor defense, and can you actually stop them? I mean, Manor's got a really good defense, or really good offense. Bryson Wright, of course, we talked about him. Knox Annis at quarterback. And to me, the key for Mandarin tonight is the ground game. If you know Bryson is going to be able to catch the ball, even in these conditions, but if you can run the ball consistently, if you're Mandarin, behind Foster and Kyrie Wilson, that's going to open things up significantly for that long ball to be there. We got Elijah Keys in that secondary. He's going to UCF, and you got Bryson Wright, the #1 ranked player in the 2028 class. That's a really good matchup tonight.
Again, an overwhelming number of the games tonight are district contests like this Mandarin-Fletcher game. So let's kind of dive into some of the scenarios. By the way, Riverside 21-0 already over Englewood. That is a score that is just in. That's a big game for Riverside to try to get back on the winning track. You already have a couple of district championship games tonight. You got Creekside, Atlantic Coast. That's basically a district championship game. Trinity Christian, Episcopal, essentially a district championship game.
Yeah, why don't we take a look at our playoff scenarios here for some district championship scenarios this week. So Creekside, Atlantic Coast, as you mentioned, that's a small 3-team district. Creekside and Atlantic Coast have both beat Sandalwood already, so this is a de facto championship game tonight in St. John's in District 1 7A. So district champion will be crowned for sure in that game. Of course, St. Augustine, our #1 ranked team, they will get a district championship tonight with a win over Clay. I expect that to happen. And a Ridgeview loss. Of course, Columbia is playing Ridgeview, so I expect both of those scenarios to happen. And Menendez, already 2-0 in district, they will get a district championship tonight with a win over Bishop Kenny, which is no small task there. Bishop Kenny will get the district championship with a win over Menendez tonight, and also a Parker win over Westside. Of course, that's a battle of teams, both winless in that district. Another scenario is here. Bradford can win a district championship with a win over Newberry and a Keystone Heights win over Santa Fe. I don't think Keystone's going to beat Santa Fe, but I expect Bradford to beat Newberry. In District 4-2A, of course, Bowles and Jackson. I think this is very likely to happen tonight. Bowles will beat Jackson. I'm pretty sure of that, Hacker.
Yeah.
And a Wolfson loss to Baldwin, and I'm pretty sure that will happen, although my Wolfpack followers are probably going to be a little upset to hear that. But Wolfson has been playing well, Hacker, this year, and you can attest to that. That's your alma mater.
Hey, the offense has been phenomenal, and rain or shine, there's going to be quite the atmosphere on Powers Avenue.
Yeah,
over there
man, the student body at Wolfson's different now. The excitement there, they're really doing a good job. And of course, you mentioned Trinity Christian and Episcopal. Both of these teams playing for a district championship tonight, facing off in District 2-1A. Trinity and Episcopal. Trinity gets the district championship with a win over Episcopal, and Episcopal gets a district championship with a win over Trinity. Of course, Episcopal has been 6-1, haven't played the schedule as a Trinity Christian. Of course, Trinity's had a little bit of an un-Trinity-like start at 2-4, but their schedule has been pretty solid this year for Trinity Christian when you look at some of the teams they've lost to.
Now, you and I have had brief conversations about this in the past, but you mentioned a prime example. Atlantic Coast Creekside is a 3-team district. That is total nonsense. I don't know why we continue to put up with 3-team districts. Essentially, that means you could go 2-8 and make the playoffs, and you would think at some point in 2025, we've gotten to the point where they would get rid of 3-team districts. They continue to have them.
Yeah, you would, and it's a 3-team district's better than a 2-team district, which we had in the past as well, too. I remember Sandalwood and Mandarin used to be in a 2-team district, so you were winning one game and getting to the playoffs as a district champ. It's garbage. I hate the 3-team districts, but it's really kind of when they break things down by classification or student enrollment and stuff, student body, population size. Those are the 3 schools in our region that are basically that size school. So you're really, unless you are pulling a team from Tallahassee or somewhere like that, even in Gainesville, if there was a 7A team there, which there's not. You pull teams from there and you stick them in there to create a 4-team district, and now you have different scenarios where you're looking at other parts of the region having potentially a 2-team or 3-team district. So it is an inexact science. It stinks. It's not a good situation for teams to have to win one game, basically, a second game. I mean, you remember a few years ago when a team was winless. And this was a different scenario back then, but didn't win the district championship, but it looked at their RPI points. They were tied in the RPI points with Andrew Jackson.
Yeah.
lost a coin flip.
Went to the coin for the dreaded coin flip.
Lost a coin flip for a playoff spot. So a winless team got to the playoffs over like a 3-win Jackson team. Unbelievable. So we've seen some crazy things, but in this scenario, I hate 3-team districts because it's not a good reflection of your true body of work. But Creekside and Atlantic Coast, both solid teams this year. Sandalwood's still kind of in that growth area. They played well. They put up points last week against First Coast, but I'm not a fan of 3-team districts. I just think it dilutes the playoff pool, doesn't really allow the best teams to get in.
No, I completely agree. As we have other scores rolling in, Columbia's up early on Ridgeview, 6-0. Baker County, an early 7-0 lead on Live Oak Swanee. You look down as well, St. Augustine, you mentioned, gets back on the field tonight. They take on Clay. First Coast and Oakleaf. We talk about the Fletcher-Mandarin matchup, which we will go to periodically this evening under the Friday Night Lights in that same district. First Coast and Oakleaf. You would expect Oakleaf to take care of business there, and if they win and if Mandarin wins, that will set up a huge district championship game between those two.
Yeah, and last year it was the first of 2 meetings. Those guys met in the regular season. Unbelievable game by Mandarin in the regular season. I can still remember a highlight from that game. Drake Stubbs, the safety. There was I think a turnover, the big run by an Oakleaf player, and Drake Stubbs tracked the player down. I mean, came from out of the frame in our shot. Came down, the Oakleaf player was just about to go into the end zone, and Drake Stubbs put his arm around the ball carrier and ripped the ball out, forced a turnover. Mandarin ended up winning that game. Great effort play by Drake Stubbs. Mandarin won the regular season game and the district championship. Those teams met in the first round of the playoffs, and Oakleaf had redemption. A very good game, blocked a field goal, had a play in the end zone at the end of the game to knock the potential winning points away from Mandarin. So the first of 2 meetings for Mandarin and Oakleaf last year. They split, and I think we're going to have the first of 2 meetings this year when these guys meet in a couple weeks.
If we look at your top 5 again for your rankings this week, I know it was St. Augustine, Mandarin, Rains, the normal teams. Of those 3, 4, even the top 5, who's in the most trouble tonight? Who has the toughest matchup? Is it Rains against Madison County?
Yeah, I think, and much has been made about Rains and the schedule. You and I have talked about this. The schedule has not been strong. They've played Lake Mary and really whacked Lake Mary 51-3. But you've not played those difficult teams week after week after week like St. Augustine has, like other teams in the area have, like Nice has. So yeah, I think once you kind of get a team like a Madison County, again, Madison County, when people look at that student enrollment and say, oh, this team's 2-4, not really a threat to play tough against Range, they're a rural team, blah, blah, blah.
Football's a religion out there.
Madison County people, if you don't know high school football, Madison County is unbelievable. I've seen Madison County beat teams savagely. I mean, beat Nice a few years ago, and Nice had some really, really good teams. Madison County is legit. I think Range is gonna have a tough time in that game tonight. I think Range has got its work cut out for it. Despite the discrepancy in their student enrollment and class size. And then when you look at, a Nice-Bartram Trail, that's a game that is going to be interesting too. Big rivals and district games on the line. Nice coming off 2 straight losses. There's a little bit of underlying tension in that game for off-the-field stuff. So, I look at maybe a Rains in Madison County tonight, and then Nice and Bartram Trail, and maybe even Mandarin with Fletcher. It looks like that's been a good game so far.
This Bartram Trail situation here in a moment. One more game I wanted to highlight. Ponte Vedra's got a huge one against Middleburg. An undefeated Middleburg team. Ponte Vedra already has, I believe, 1 district loss. They really can't afford a second one. That is a gigantic game in that district. One of the best in St. Johns County against a surprise team in Clay County.
Yeah, and for Middleburg, I think it's big for a couple reasons. So, Middleburg and Ryan Wolf have really done a good job in resurrecting that program. Middleburg's kind of been left for dead for a little bit of time before Ryan Wolf got there and started turning things around. But they've played schedules. They've structured their schedules the last few seasons to where you have extremely light teams before you get to that bye week and then really into your district play. So you're playing the Zarephaths and NFBI and those kind of teams, not really, massive quality teams. You're Middleburg, you're 5A school, you're playing these smaller programs, but you're building wins, you're stacking confidence for your guys and building something up. So I get why you're doing that, but once you get into the tougher part of the schedule, which begins tonight against Ponte Vedra and then into those district games, that's a huge test for Ryan Wolf and the Broncos, because in the last few years, this is the part of the season where they started to break down once these more challenging opponents came along. So Middleburg, if they beat Ponte Vedra, which they're down 3-0 in the game right now, you're in that district race, and you basically set up a de facto district championship game in a few weeks against the beach side. So huge game for both teams. Really, really big for Ponte Vedra because another district loss and you're pretty much out of the district championship race. And we're looking in on the Creekside game here.
Yeah, this is a district championship game, and Creekside's the first team on the board as they take the lead. And look, they're already having a lot of success there against Atlantic Coast.
Yeah, 14-0 as we drop in on that game right now. A true district championship game out there at the Castle tonight. Of course, my kids go to Creekside. I know they're out there in the pouring down rain out there.
Braving the elements
Braving the elements out there tonight. So is our photog, Chris Smith, and all of our shooters around the area tonight. Nothing like shooting in a nasty, nasty weather out there. So doing a good job, Chris, and all of our other shooters out there. But true district championship game out there at the Castle between Atlantic Coast and Creekside in the dreaded 3-team district.
And what does it say about Creekside? Because they got off to a really bad start. Now, they played some of the best teams in Northeast Florida. But for Coach Sean McIntyre to keep that team together, to keep working the process, they could punch their playoff ticket tonight. That's a good job by he and his staff.
Yeah, and you look back at last week's game against Fleming Island, an unbelievable performance in that game. You're down in the fourth quarter of that game against Fleming Island. This has been a rivalry that has been fantastic in the last few years. So as we drop in on both of those games right now, looks like Fletcher's got something going over there
fired
at
up
the
about
corral.
something.
Maybe a turnover there for the Senators. So Fletcher getting a little bit excited over there. And as we do the split screen there, Creekside up 14-0 on Atlantic Coast. We got no score in that Mandarin Fletcher game, but Fletcher excited. It looked like they just came away with a turnover in that game and good festivities. The band going strong out there and the nasty elements. So not a fun night to be out there, but still a lot of good stuff in these areas.
Yeah, it surprises me a little bit that Mandarin and Fletcher's score was two pretty good offenses. This goes back into what we talked about at the top. The weather is going to play havoc with the offenses tonight, and it's going to be a battle of attrition there. All right, we are 20 minutes into the program. We will keep you updated. We'll give you a bunch of scoreboard updates as scores roll in. But clearly, Justin, and maybe unfortunately this week, one of the big stories is in St. Johns County, a big rivalry game tonight between Bartram Trail and Nice, and certainly some off-the-field conversations and issues with both programs that you've been on top of the entire week.
Yeah, I got an update on the Nice situation here in a few minutes involving their defensive coordinator. But the big news this week was Bartram Trail head coach Corey Johns was held out of this week's Nice game for big reason. He possibly the Bartram Trail athletic director and school found out or were apprised of a potential violation involving Corey Johns at Bartram Trail. So on Thursday, they made the decision to sit him down this week as they self-reported a violation involving Coach Johns and a player. So that situation's still ongoing. They self-reported. I reached out to the FHSAA. They had no update as of today. So Corey Johns is out for this game against Nice, which is a big game. Bartram's been hot. They started 0-4. They've won 2 games. And oh, by the way, your opponent Nice, defensive coordinator Robert Garth, we've talked about this before on the show, suspended for 6 games at the end of September. So he was suspended for 6 games for talking to a talking to a player on social media. So reaching out to social media and communicating with a player who was enrolled at Sandalwood at the time. So another school turned him in, reported the allegation, and after that, you have to kind of do your research and do your legwork. So what happened, Garth reached out to this player at Sandalwood via social media, had some conversations there. The mother and son were asked about this situation, and they said, hey, we have no relation with Coach Garth. And in that regards, I don't know him. I don't know why he's contacted my son. So another school reached out and told the FHSA, hey, here's what we have. Garth was suspended initially for 6 games for that. So in this process of this past week, the player's mother and the player's father in question reached out to the FHSAA and said, here's the scenario which happened. So the mother, who I spoke to yesterday, said, I was unaware that my son's father reached out to Coach Garth on my son's behalf. and asked him. Robert Garth has got deep college connections, coach at New Mexico State, Arkansas State. He's got some deep connections. So the father had said a college football coach started following his son on Twitter, and he reached out to Garth for information on this. Hey, can you help my son? So anyway, long story short, the parents have made a sales pitch to the FHSA. The FHSAA, as of yesterday, reduced Robert Garth's suspensions from 6 games to 3 games, rescinded or it took away, there was initially a $2,500 fine, and reduced that to $250 and said, okay, you've already served your suspension, you missed your 3 games, you're eligible to coach again in our eyes. So in that vein, the St. Johns County School District has launched an internal investigation in this. Since this situation involved 2 county schools, they've suspended Garth, so they've not given the final go-ahead, like you can go back and, your FHA suspension has been kind of, you're done and over with, but our situation's not cleared up yet. So they're still investigating that situation, still no resolution on that. Who knows when that will happen. Those things can take time. So as of now, no suspension for Robert Garth anymore. He served that, but he is still needs to be cleared by the St. Johns County School District. Just weird that in a week that Bartram Trail and Nice face off, the defensive coordinator at Nice suspended, the head coach at Bartram Trail suspended. Just a weird kind of dynamic, huh?
Yeah, it's going to add to the irony of the game, no question about it. And look, this brings up a broader topic, and again, we'll keep you updated on the scores here in just a moment, but we feel this is pretty important. Recruiting happens in high school football.
Everywhere.
I mean, this is not 15, 20, 25 years ago, and even at that point, it happened a little bit. It's out in the open now, and, do coaches, I mean, I would imagine they do, but do they know what they can and cannot do, and how much stuff like this happens that's never even reported?
Oh, it happens daily, all the time, at every school, no matter what school it is. I don't care if your principal, your head coach, whoever, say, we run a clean there are always things in the program that are not done on the up and up. And I was telling Sponge Franklin on our podcast earlier this week that years ago, 5-6 years ago, I had a head coach at a very well-known school locally show me correspondence from another head coach at a bigger school in the town, reaching out to one of his players at his school, text messages from the head coach that the other head coach showed me. So this was a head coach of a very well-known school was texting a player, come play at our school, come play, this is what we can do for you. We've had X, Y, and Z players go to college. So I asked the coach, I said, why are you not going to turn this guy? I mean, this is clear cut. I mean, I clicked on the name. I mean, the coach's number I had in my phone as well, so I could verify it was the head coach of this prominent school sending text. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I asked, I said, why are you not going to turn him in for this? I mean, this is clear as day. I mean, a sitting head coach trying to solicit one of your players. And he says, well, it's not as easy as that. It's not as easy as just going and turning this in, because once you have the light shine on somebody else, you better not have anything.
It's them today, it could be us tomorrow.
It's them today, and with the Bartram and Nice situation. Very good point there. But this situation a few years ago, I asked the coach, I'm like, why? You've got this evidence right here on your phone. I verified it's the head coach's number. I mean, it's clear as day, complete violation. He said, well, it's going to open Pandora's box. So if you report that guy, well, what if that school comes back and says, hey, we've got you texting our player. We've got your assistant coach texting one of our kids. So if you better make sure your nose is clear before you go ahead and accuse another school, because when it comes back on you, it comes back on you.
Well, and at the end of the day, I mean, the players in our area, unlike, what they could do and couldn't do 10, 15 years ago, you can go to 4 high schools in 4 years. In Clay County, for example, it's a free-for-all. There's no districting. You can go wherever you want. So it's essentially free agency in that regard. But you just can't. The parameters are you can't contact a player that's enrolled at a current school.
Correct.
That's what the issue was in this particular situation.
Correct. And it was done through social media, where most things start. But with the FHSA now, and they have these policies that spell out pretty clear examples of what is a violation, what is not. But you look at situations like the Teddy Bridgewater situation at Miami Northwestern earlier this year. Teddy basically told on himself and said, hey, I've been doing all these things for my kids. I can't do it anymore. I need some financial help. And the FHA and everybody around the state's like, whoa, 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 you just told on yourself for a laundry list of violations, my friend. So that situation was perceived quite a bit differently.
But part of that was he was giving kids rides home and taking them to get dinners because they were hungry.
Right.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
So the Teddy situation, yes, it was truly against the letter of the law. It violated X, Y, Z, Q. I mean, it violated so many bylaws in there. But the state of Florida now holds a very tight grip over the FHSAA. So the state education commissioner, politicians, everybody, they hold a very, very firm grasp over the FHSAA. And I heard through the grapevine over the course of the last week and a half that the recruiting angles and the stuff that's in the bylaws, I think, in what I've heard just through communications, and it's going to get even worse. The FHSA is going to continue to take the gas pedal off in terms of recruiting violations and stuff. You've got the state breathing down your neck. The state has pretty much opened up the policies in the state of Florida where, back in the day, you'd have to, if you transfer from one school to the other, you were out for a year or out for a season.
Right.
I mean, you've got kids playing at 3 different schools. You got kids playing a fall sport at one school, winter sport at another, and a spring sport at another school. You've got kids that are transferring mid-season. There was a kid recently, Providence, transferred to Yulee and played the next week. Yeah. So you've got situations like that, and the state legislature and politicians are all about school choice. That's why public and private will never be split. That's why they're very much hands-off, give parents the opportunity, send your kids wherever. They believe that, and with recruiting, with social media and stuff, things that were open and shut just 2 years ago are now being looked at with the lens of, okay, maybe we should cut them a little bit of slack. The Garth situation, had this happen 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, you're done for a good bit of time.
Right.
There's no, I don't care what parents get together and create a story. No, you're done. I mean, you're going to be done for a period of time. And it's just changed. The dynamic in the state has changed. And I think it's only going to continue to lighten up, where recruiting is I'm not gonna say encourage, but I think recruiting and the punishments and all that stuff, unless it's something extremely, extremely egregious, I think the state, its hands are almost tied in making a lot of these decisions.
We have some movement in a couple of these games. I want to get back to the scoreboard in a moment, but quickly, that's the Garth of the Nice point of view. Yep. From the Bartram point of view, with Coach Johns not being able to coach in this game tonight, what's the resolution there? Do you think that it's going to be as simple as he'll be back in a week or two, or could this be a bigger issue for Bartram Trail?
Yeah, and I think in a lot of these self-reported situations, they are usually to deal with eligibility of some kind, transcript issues or something along those lines, or illegal contact or impermissible contact with a player before they enroll, or you text a player or talk to them on social media, whatever the so 99% of the time these situations are eligibility related, or talking to a player before they enroll at your school or from another school, that kind of issue. So depending on what it is at Bartram, I would tend to believe, with how the Garth situation played out, I would think that, this is just complete speculation at this point, but I would think that the Corey Johns, the Bartram situation, he's been out this week after self-reporting. I would say he gets at most 3 games, just like Garth.
Okay.
For whatever infraction it was, but I think that's the most he would get. Again, unless it's something completely egregious. But I do think the FHSA is probably, as time rolls on and recruiting in other states and the NCAA transfer portal and all this stuff, I think as that goes on and it advances and we get into this more of this this society where there's not a lot of ramifications on things you do. I do think the punishments are going to become less and less, and I think it could be something where it's more of like an administrative probation kind of thing, which Nisha's placed on, which is just a clerical kind of slap on the wrist. Hey, don't do this again. We're watching you kind of deal. Administrative probation is nothing. So I think those punishments, the recruiting stuff, will get fewer and fewer cases unless it's something just absolutely egregious and extreme, like the First Academy situation down in Orlando, where it was you had to take some action there.
And we had to talk about it. It's a big story, but obviously let's get back in to the action on the field. Again, ironically, Nice and Bartram Trail are playing tonight. Nice up 7-0. As we take a live look in, we got a district championship game going on between Creekside and Atlantic Coast. We also have the Channel 4 game of the week at the Corral over on Greenland Road with Fletcher and Mandarin. I believe, well, there you go, Mandarin. That's an incomplete pass. I believe Fletcher has an early lead in this, Justin. If I'm not mistaken, my last check, it was 7-0 Fletcher at the Corral. Yeah, that's just been confirmed. 7-0.
Yeah.
Does that surprise you? Fletcher's up early.
Yeah,
here?
a little bit. It looked like after a turnover in that Fletcher game, we had a 1-yard touchdown run from Jones. So Fletcher up 7-0 in that game. A little bit of surprise. They're playing like they have something to lose in this game, which is a playoff spot if they don't win. And of course, even if they do win, things are not completely sewn up, because yes, you've got a loss to Oakleaf. That puts that Oakleaf Mandarin game, should Fletcher go on to win this game, that puts that Oakleaf Mandarin game in a pretty big spotlight too. So Fletcher has to win this district outright, because it's not going to, the point standings, I think they're 8th or 9th this week. So you've got to win this district outright, and to do that, you're going to need a little bit of help. And
we'll get into those playoff seedings and where teams would be if the playoffs started today, coming up in just a moment. By the way, we're talking about Baldwin and my alma mater, Wolfson. I got 28-0 Baldwin. Oof. So much was talked about Xander Edwards and the 8 touchdowns against Baldwin. And by the way, Bowles is on the field tonight. They're up 13-0 early on Jackson. We'll see how Xander Edwards does for an encore on that one. People lost fact of the point that Baldwin scored 49 there a week after scoring 48 against Baker County, and now all of a sudden 28 first quarter points. How good is this Baldwin offense?
They're moving the ball. In their 2 losses, they put up 49 and 48 points. They have a good quarterback in Gage Cruz. They get some talent at receiver. They're moving the ball every game out. Their Baker County loss was they put up 48 in that game. Against Bowles, they put up over 500 in that game, 500 yards in that game. So Don Velvet and company and Gage Cruz covered his brother Gavin Screws when he was at Baldwin, a really good quarterback there for them. So Baldwin, if they know how to do one thing out there in Baldwin, it's score some points. Be it the softball team, they're really good too, or the football team. Man, the Indians know how to put some runs across the board there.
Wake City, Columbia, 14-0 over Ridgeview. We mentioned Rains and Madison County. Rains has scored to go up 7-6 in that game. When I got to the Channel 4 studios tonight, I saw the piece you guys were doing on the Rains kicker, coming, thousands of miles over here. He's a junior. And we know that in the past, Rains has had trouble in the kicking game. Not anymore. I think he's made every extra point he's taken this year.
Yeah, he missed 1 extra point in the game, and in a game this year, I think he's 27-28, kicking Dan DeWong. Really cool story. He's from Vietnam, came here when he was 11 years old. It's just a really cool story. I know Chris Will, one of our news reporters, has been tracking Rains all season long. Got a chance to catch up with him over this week. Just really cool. And the thing with that, people think, oh, kicking, that special teams aren't that much. And I brought this up the other night on our Varsity 4 show. Rains a few years ago was playing at South Sumter in a first or second round playoff game. It's 29-28, seconds left to go in the game. Rains scored a touchdown. Darian Wiley's got a choice. Okay, we can try and kick a field goal, which we stink at. Try and kick a PAT to tie this game, send it to overtime, or we can play for the win. I don't trust my guys to get off a snap and put down in the kick up. If I'm going to lose this game in overtime or whatever, I want to lose it on my terms. So I went for a 2-point conversion, missed a 2-point conversion, lost 29-28. But the simple ability to make a point after is an art that has been lost at Rains.
It's not an automatic in the high school game.
And Rains has been burned by that very, very scenario multiple times. State championship games, playoff games, just the ability to hit an extra point is tough to do. And come playoff time, if they're in a championship game or a state semifinal game against Miami Central or Northwestern, and you got a chance to win the game or a kick late in the game on a 30-yard field goal, you're not lining up for that in the past. You're taking a shot on 4th and 18, throwing it in the end zone because you can't kick a PAT let a field goal. So the Dan Duong addition at Raines is sneaky good and could really benefit them come playoff time.
Nobody thinks about a kicker until it's 29,
until it's too late,
in
right?
The playoffs, and you need one. There's no doubt about that. Middleburg and in Ponte Vedra, we talked about this earlier. Big game in that district, back and forth. Ponte Vedra 10-7 now over Middleburg in the first quarter. Also, Oakleaf has jumped on top of First Coast 7-0 as well. But again, I go back to Ponte Vedra, Middleburg 3-0 Ponte Vedra. Middleburg scores to make it 7-3. Ponte Vedra has just retaken the lead 10-7. You got a feeling that's going to be a back and forth game the entire night.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, if Middleburg, this is their game of the year, the biggest game so far this year. This is a district game, a chance to boot Ponte Vedra out of the playoffs, and a chance for you to really say, hey, we're not Middleburg of last year, 2 years ago. Hey, we're making the playoffs as an 8th seed, and we're not going to do anything in the playoffs once we get there. This is a chance to say, hey, we're not only going to make the playoffs, which Middleburg would if we started the playoffs today, but we're going to win this district this year. And yes, say what you will about the schedule and how light it's been, and you know, you're not playing those really heavyweight teams, but beating Ponte Vedra would be massive. Would be, I want to say, probably they had a win against North Marion that was pretty darn big for Ryan Wolf, but a win over Ponte Vedra would be substantial.
Major bragging rights on the line tonight in Nassau County. Yulee, a big favorite over Fernandina Beach coming in, and that's bearing out right now as Yulee has jumped on top of their in-county rival 21-0 in the second quarter. We're going to find out an awful lot about Yulee in a couple of weeks when they play Raines, and that's obviously going to be a tough putt. But Kyle Doherty and that staff out there at Yulee, this is the best team they've had in a long time.
Yeah, this is their best start in program history, and that includes all 4 years with Derrick Henry. You know, you're 6-0 right now. You basically have a district championship game here in a few weeks against Raines. And Kyle Doherty's got his guys believing. I've said this a few times. When I went out to Yulee's practice, and you talk to Turtle Ricks and see how big that guy is on that line. These guys, the first thing Turtle Ricks says, we worked all offseason in the weight room to get bigger, stronger, and faster. We were 2-8 last year. We were 2-8 after a 9-3 season. We had humble pie all offseason, and we worked not to have that feeling again. And right now, when you're looking at it, you've already beat West Nassau. You've had an unbelievable start, best in program history.
Beat Charlton County.
Charlton County as well, and you are getting your guys, and you've gotten your guys to believe that, hey, we're not just the best in Nassau County. We're going to be able to bang with Raines here. We're not just happy, you know, at being 6-0, being 7-0. We think we can deliver on winning a district championship. And yeah, we know that path goes through Raines. We're not just thinking getting in the playoffs. We're thinking about beating Raines, winning the district championship, and we have the team that we think we can do that.
Impact Christian 19-0 over Paxton. That surprises me a little bit.
Yeah, look, you know, Impact Christian, to me, I had higher hopes for them this season. Elijah Caldwell Hardy's a really good player going to Michigan State. They've had a little bit of a struggle. They got drummed by Providence last week. They lost in Tallahassee the week before, and then University Christian blew them out of the water. So, you know, Impact Christian really wanted to make its case this year. Hey, we can bang for a district championship. We got the biggest recruit in our program's history. We're ready to take that next step, and it hasn't really developed for that. So expected this tonight, this type of performance against Paxton. Paxton's a really good team, but I think Impact Christian, after 3 straight losses against some pretty solid competition, expected to kind of deliver this performance to Paxton.
Oakleaf has jumped on top of First Coast 14-0. That's the one district game. The other one is the Channel 4 game of the night between Mandarin and Fletcher. Let's go take another look back at the corral right now between Mandarin and Fletcher. Again, every stadium, every field in Northeast Florida is going to be dealing with water, going to be dealing with weather, although it looks like the corral there is holding up decently well. And I believe, is it still 7-0 Fletcher? It's what I have right here in a defensive battle. And again, this is a Mandarin offense that is not hard or not easy to stop. And Fletcher so far is doing that, maybe with the aid of some of the field conditions.
Yeah, and Fletcher played in this last week at Palm Coast, one of the probably the nastiest Jersey game I've seen all season long in terms of the highlights. We had our poor photographer, Chris Smith, went down there and came back and said, "You owe me a new pair of shoes." And so that and Flagler Palm Coast Field is. I remember Joey Wiles and St. Augustine played Flagler Palm Coast down there we're talking years ago, probably in the 2005 state championship season, if I remember correctly. And the field was so pitted and so many holes and potholes in that field. And Joey said, "This is the worst field I've ever played on." And seeing those highlights from last week and how dirty and beaten up that field was reminded me of that time, seeing those big divots and dirt in the field right there.
Around the end, they're inside the 10-yard line. It looks
banging, knocking on the door. So Mandarin, before halftime, trying to get up and into the end zone that would tie this game at 7 if they get here and knock in the PAT. So,
and again, this is a Fletcher team that lost by 30 to Oakleaf.
Yeah.
So I mean, they needed to come out and have a much better start, and they have certainly accomplished that to this point.
Yeah, and Seatric Faison talked to Alessandra this week and said they were expecting to compete in this game. They worked things out. They felt pretty good after that win on the road against Palm Coast in the terrible conditions that they were going to see tonight. And you feel like, Seatric has kind of been banging on the door, and they haven't played that difficult of a schedule. When you talk about, they haven't had a lot of those really kind of sexy wins, so to speak, against the big time programs this year. So this is a game they've lost quite a few times in recent history, and I think Seatric felt going into this game that they were better prepared to win this week than they have been in years past. They really have the team to do it. They have a great defense. The offense has scared me a little bit. I think they're a little bit regressed on offense compared to defense, but I do think Seatric was really confident going into this game that they could bang with Mandarin and come home with a win.
Seatric is football royalty at Fletcher. He's the best football player they've ever had in their program history, and when he comes back to be the head coach, that's a lot of pressure on him. And I think, look, they've made the playoffs pretty consistently in his time there. Obviously, they need to win this game, or they certainly need to beat First Coast and get some help to get in this year. But I think he's done an admirable job amidst all the pressure he probably has as being the head man at his alma mater. Yeah,
when you're football royalty out there, like Seatric is, he was #1 in the area rushing record books. He knocked out Willie McClendon, knocked Willie's mark out of the way, finished with 177 yards. Memory served me right in his career, and had that erased by Derrick Henry's big-time career at Yulee. But Seatric is a guy who is he started at Fletcher as a ninth grader, and you knew from the first carry of his career he was going to be special. So to kind of fulfill that legacy as a player in high school, do what you did at Florida, get drafted by the Vikings in the 4th round of the draft, play in the NFL, and come back and give to your alma mater. This was the job he always wanted. He's coached at other schools and as an assistant and stuff, but Fletcher was the job for Seatric Faison, and I think you see that in his coaching style and his passion on the sidelines, and he lives and breathes Neptune Beach Rats purple colors.
Rains in Madison County have gone to halftime, 7-6 Rains, a defensive slugfest there. Riverside 30-0 over Inglewood. You kind of expected that. Riverside, this might be a get-right game for them tonight.
Yeah, Inglewood's been a lot of get-right games this year for people. Unfortunately, it's just been a completely rebuilding year. New head coach, Kevin Johnson, is let go in the offseason. They have a new coach, Coach Mohammed. It just, we've talked about this, the issues with the gateway team.
It's tough, yeah.
You got the really good teams. You've got the teams that are, and then we got a touchdown there.
Oh, wow. Look at Mandarin, both feet in the back of the end zone. That's a good score.
That's a good score. Mandarin pending the PAT here will be 7-all here against Fletcher in a huge Gateway Conference district clash here. But yeah, you really have the highs and the lows in the Gateway Conference, and Inglewood, you showed a little signs of life under Kevin Johnson, another alum, kind of like Seatric Faison, returner to his alma mater. But you're starting over, and we've talked about this before. When you have the really good programs, the really bad programs, parents and kids aren't stupid. No. They're going to look for other options, and Inglewood Inglewood's another program where I think we have a 2-point conversion run here.
Ooh.
Nice play there. So It looks like we've got
lower in the shoulder there.
An 8-7 game here at the Corral.
Toby Bullock not messing around, the head coach of Mandarin.
Yeah, we talked about the kick in the PATs, having a reliable kicker, and when you got one, you're good. But man, I don't know if they want to kick in the rain here. So yeah, Mandarin goes up on Fletcher 8-7 in our varsity 4 game of the week, 51 ticks before halftime. So huge score late in the half there for Mandarin. You're going to go in halftime with a 1-point lead.
Yeah, they got the momentum going into the locker room. You mentioned Inglewood and how tough it is being in the Gateway. There will be a team that gets a win. You don't want to see any team to go 0-10, and tonight we have that situation, Parker and Westside. Someone's going to get their first win of the year, and whoever does that, those kids have earned it.
Yeah, and good for that. You hate to see any high school team struggle with that winless. I mean, the kids talk and they see it on social media. Oh, you stink, you're winless, you haven't won a game. And
my freshman year at Wolfson, that happened.
Yeah, and
I was on the JV team, but our varsity went 0-10, and then we lost the first 8 games my sophomore year. We had lost 18 in a row before we beat Inglewood to break our 18-game losing streak. In my sophomore year, you would have thought we won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and that's huge for kids. It's huge for kids and parents of those programs. I mean, when Sandalwood gets its first win, Sandalwood's lost 27 straight games.
Oh, man.
27 straight games. That's a hard streak to get to. I mean, that's almost 3 straight years. And they've shown signs of life. But, you know, Sandalwood and Brad Kessel, when those guys finally get that win, I don't think it's happening tonight, but I do think it could happen this year. That's going to be a huge reason for success. Stanton, years ago, ended like a 30-game losing streak, and how cool it was for those programs. And, you know, we've talked about the gateway teams and the teams that really can't compete in the level they're at. The Paxtons, the Stantons did the right thing, and they said, we're in districts every year and we're getting our teeth kicked in.
Yeah.
It's no fun for our guys. Let's play a schedule more conducive to who we are as a team. They joined the SSAA, the Sunshine State Athletic Association. Fantastic decision. Same thing with you. Same thing with Fernandina. Same thing with West Nassau. And I think teams like Inglewood, teams like Sandalwood, they need to consider going into something like that where it allows you to kind of create a little bit more of a runway for your guys to have that success. Because, and this goes into a broader, I think the student enrollment classifications where you've got teams slotted by student enrollments, I think that's such an antiquated way of slotting teams with how things have gone, transfers and all that stuff. That's why Suburban Metro made a little bit more sense in terms of fairness to it. But I think that the teams like the Inglewood's going to be winless this year. Parker, Westside, they're both winless tonight. Somebody's going to get a win. But teams like that really need to consider going to that independent path where you can actually have some success.
Do you think there's a connotation there? I mean, it's got like a pride swallowing thing.
Oh,
to
I'm
say,
sure.
I got to get out of the FHSAA, and people just don't want to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's something, you know, and I'm sure principals at school, we're not going to, there's pride and stuff there, but it makes so much sense. What it's done for Fernandina, what it's done for Paxton, Stanton, I mean, those guys have something to play for.
I mean, West Nassau can make a deep run this year.
And Fernandina played for a championship last year. Paxton would have probably got to that championship game, but they were kicked out of the playoffs for something ridiculous. It was a fight in one of their games that they had won. They got expelled from the playoffs. So who cares? And yeah, there's a negative connotation with we get out of district play and we play in the SSAA. Who cares? This is about your kids, your program, having something to cheer for on Friday night. And Paxton playing Reigns in a district game, nobody cared. You knew you were going to get boot stomped in that game. And same thing with when West Nassau was in there with Reigns and Bowles. I had this conversation with every West Nassau coach who was there in the time I've been doing this. And they've been in districts with Bowles and Reigns, I don't know how many times. Mm-hmm. And they said, we could go 8-2 every year. And we know that was the best, that was where our season was capped because we couldn't compete with Bowles, we couldn't compete with Reigns. The path to the playoffs was district champion, district runner-up, and that you knew that as soon as the schedule was made.
Right.
So in the situations now when you're in Inglewood and you're in a district with the Riversides and the White, it's not good for the program, it's not good for the players. Give them something they could actually play for. Paxton can play for a state championship this year. They're good, and they're losing tonight, but Paxton is really good. They beat Union County on the road, or they had a chance to beat Union County on the road 2 weeks ago. Paxton's a really good team. Steve Brown's been there for a little bit of time, built something special there. They did the right path. They got on the off-ramp and said, hey, give us a schedule and teams we can bang against.
Yeah, I mean, them, West Nassau, Fernandina are living proof. Stanton as well, living proof that leaving the FHSAA does not have to have that connotation with it. You can compete and you can have a lot of success as those football entities. It is the Friday Night Lights on 4 Plus, Channel 4 and 1010XL. We are presented by Farah and Farah. We'll come back with a Superior Fence and Rail scoreboard update. We are at halftime. A lot more to do. It is a big district night of high school football. We'll certainly keep you updated on all the district matchups, a couple of district championship games as well. We're glad you're with us under the Friday night lights.
Weather keeps us on our toes. 1 minute it's sunny, the next minute pop-up showers.
And that's why we plan for quick changes.
Letting you know the exact minute you'll need a jacket, an umbrella, or some flip-flops.
Before things turn messy. With spot-on alerts wherever you are. There are no surprises when you stay ready with the Weather Authority. Always watching, always tracking.
We got the hotness, them no stop this, no.
This is Jen from The Morning Show, your go-to problem solver. She even got a shout-out from this nice lady.
Thank you.
This is Bruce, who knows the importance of covering breaking news until it's safe. He knows this because he has 7 kids he worries about. And here's Weather Authority Katie, tracking severe weather minute by minute. And she always lets you know the best time to walk your dog. Together, they kickstart your day right on The Morning Show. Only on News4Jax and News4Jax Plus.
News4Jax is all about community.
Very good to see you. It's local voices and stories that matter most.
Always connecting, always listening, searching for solutions, and getting answers to the questions you care about most.
We've always got your back.
News4Jax and News4Jax Plus, Jacksonville's most watched newscast.
Channel 4 celebrates the people who are positively Jags.
I would be stuck here without somebody helping.
It's okay. From a cup of water providing a stream of hope.
I've actually got water.
To help, knocking on the door of a local veteran unable to leave his home. Awe-inspiring stories of our community putting others first.
Positively Jax, only on News4Jax.
It's all or nothing, no in between. So let me tell you what that really means. Let's start the show, fully charged. We just letting you know it's all or nothing.
We are back with a new season. Join us for a full half hour of scores, highlights, and features on Varsity 4 football.
Fridays at 10:30. Presented by the accident attorneys at Farah and Farah.
Is this thing on? What are we even doing here? It's now football time.
GMFB Overtime on CW17.
I love CW17. It's in Jacksonville.
It's one of the great stations.
If you miss this electric cinematic moment,
Look at this fan's reaction to what Tank Bigsby just did. Oh, come here!
look how happy he looks.
That guy giving that hug, I love you.
You're definitely a Jags super fan.
5 days a week.
Let's go!
GMFB Overtime. Weekdays at 10 on CW17.
It's time for another look at the high school scoreboard, brought to you by Superior Fence and Rail, where quality matters.
With Justin Barney of Channel 4, the hacker Ryan Green of 1010XL, we're glad you're with us under the Friday night lights. And as we look at this scoreboard, Justin, obviously some big games all over the area. Rains, Madison County, a 7-6 game halftime. The Channel 4 game of the week is at halftime. Mandarin takes an 8-7 lead into the locker room. But just think about what I just said. Fletcher, Mandarin, Rains, Madison County have a combined 28 points for those 4 teams in the first half tonight.
Yeah, with the weather conditions out there, not too surprising, but yeah. Had you told me that beforehand on a perfect Friday night, whether those would be the scores, yeah, a little surprised, but 28 points and combined 4 quarters of football in those games is a little bit surprising.
Homecoming for the Bulldogs tonight. They lead Jackson 27-0. 4 minutes to go in the second quarter. Lake City, Columbia 21-0 over Ridgeview. That game is in the second quarter. Baldwin 35-0 over Wolfson. A lot of routes in those games.
Yeah, not surprising with those scores. Columbia, you knew they were going to come to Ridgeview and win pretty good in that game. They've been a top 10 team for us a good portion of the season, and they're going to help St. Augustine win a district championship if they beat Ridgeview, and I think they're well on their way to that.
Live Oak, Suwannee, and Baker County all tied at 14. That's an interesting dynamic there. That's a big game for Baker in that district. You also look Nice, Bartram. Now, I don't have an update here. I just have second quarter action. I still have Nice 7-0 over Bartram the way it stands right now.
Last update I have, too, in that game is 7-0 Nice, and that's always such a good game. And the history of those schools, Nice has been open since, I believe, 1981. In 2000, Bartram Trail opened up to alleviate crowding on Nice. So there was always this natural rivalry between Nice and Bartram Trail, just from when they opened, and more for the older generation of kids when Bartram opened. So we're talking 25 years ago. But Nice and Bartram have always had that little bit of rivalry, and then Ponte Vedra broke off of Nice. But Nice and Ponte Vedra have that rivalry. But yeah, the Bartram and Nice was that original St. Augustine, that St. Johns County rivalry after the St. Augustine Nice rivalry. St. Augustine Nice were those intense, fierce rivals, and then it became Bartram and Nice, and kind of the torch has been passed. But that is always such a good game.
Yeah, you look at the action in St. Johns County as well. I know the Channel 4 cameras are out at one of the games of the night, a district championship game between Creekside and Atlantic Coast. Creekside, of course, out of St. Johns County. Last score I had was Creekside 14-0. Whoever wins that game punches their tickets to the playoffs.
Yeah, and that would be huge for Sean McIntyre and Creekside. You didn't have a good start to this season. You had some tough losses. You beat Bartram Trail for the first time in back-to-back seasons, the first time in that rivalry's history, but you didn't have that start that you wanted. But for Creekside, if they win tonight, last year Creekside opened in 2008. We're in the year 2025. They only have one district championship in program history.
Wow. That
came last year, so yes, it's a three-team district. Yes, it's two teams that aren't up to your level. But hey, district championship is a district championship. That's like saying in the NFL, it's a bad opponent. Hey, district championship's a district championship, and I know they'll celebrate it at Creekside, and Sean McIntyre will do something that nobody else in Creekside history has done, and that's win not one title, but two.
It's a 7:30 kick, so the game's very early on between Bradford County and Newberry. This is personal for Bradford County tonight. Newberry beat them not once but twice last year, knocked them out of the playoffs. Talking to Jamie Rogers, the head coach of the Tornadoes last week, needless to say, they've had this game circled all year. Newberry appears to be down.
Yes.
I think Bradford County is going to have fun this evening.
Yeah, and that's a redemption game for those guys. And, they've had that circled on the calendar. Bradford didn't lose a lot of regular season games under Jamie Rogers. They lost a regular season game, and they lost a playoff game last year, both to the same team. So this is personal for them, a chance to get closer to a district championship. They could win it tonight. They need a little bit of help, but I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, this is a big game for Jamie Rogers and those guys in start.
We mentioned homecoming at Bowles, 27-0. They lead Jackson almost at halftime there. Xander Edwards, his first time on the field since the state of Florida record, right? 522 yards, 8 rushing touchdowns, just an incredible performance by Xander Edwards. Got a Miami offer as a result of that performance. Again, only a sophomore. Bowles starts their second half of their season tonight. What do you make of the Bulldogs?
Yeah, they're good. And looking at highlights here from Xander's record-setting game against Baldwin a couple weeks ago, a mere 522 yards on the ground. That's a lot of feet on the ground for Xander Edwards. And state, actually second in state history now with those 522 yards on 39 carries in that game a couple weeks ago, that kind of shootout game against Baldwin. And of course, the 8 rushing touchdowns was actually ties a state record in the modern era for running backs. So really cool to see Xander back in action. I think he's already got a touchdown rushing tonight against our friends at Andrew Jackson, which again, that's another situation where you hate to see Jackson and Bowles lumped into a district together.
That entire district, Jackson, Wolfson, Baldwin. Yep. All due respect to Baldwin, by the way, they're a good football team. Bowles has no business playing those teams in district games.
No, and that's what we're still going to have districts next year, but as we kind of segue into the open division, the championship division, that's still on the FHA record, on the books to come to fruition next year, and that's a division where you put almost the top 10, 12, 16 teams in their own bracket by those FHA rankings points. So you could get the Bowleses of the world should they be in that top bracket or whatever it is. So that's a possibility. That's an answer to some of these teams playing in these districts that they probably shouldn't be in, having this open division in the future coming where they put more of those bowls, Northwestern kind of teams into their own separate bracket come playoff time. But I would really like to see, I don't know if it's the way you rank them going. I don't know what the perfect solution is, but it would be great to get like the Bowleses of the world out of those districts with the Jacksons and the Wolfsons, because you're going to roll over those teams year after year after year. And I do think it would be cool to have divisions that were districts that were separated by quality of team as opposed to student enrollment. Because when you look at Bowles, when you look at Wolfson, Ball, you have similar student enrollment, but it's not the same. I mean, you're talking an elite, nationally regarded, internationally regarded private school where you can pull kids from all over the country, all over the world, and Baldwin. Come on, it's such. And
again, now Baldwin's a good football team.
No,
but I mean, in
not
the grand
compared
scheme of things,
compared. I mean, there's no other school around here. No disrespect, Baldwin, Baker County, Wolfson, whomever. I mean, Bowles would be. When you look at Bowles compared to any other school, I mean, your student body comes from everywhere,
right?
And you're not playing with the same deck of cards. So that's why, to me, student enrollment, back when you had kids coming from your own neighborhood and zone schools, that system worked 20 years ago when there's no open enrollment where you could go anywhere in the state you want to. It's antiquated. I think it needs to evolve with the times, and you get Bowles out of the district with Wolfson, with Baldwin. Get those schools in a district. Put a Bowles in there with Raines. Put a Bowles in there with the St. Augustine. That to me makes sense more than Bowles and Wolfson and Jackson. Just not the way to go.
Ponte Vedra has added a field goal, 13-7. They lead Middleburg. We talked about what a big game that was earlier. And then a game we haven't talked about yet, Hawthorne and University Christian. Nice matchup, and I have right now Hawthorne 16-0 over UC.
Yeah, Hawthorne, I picked Hawthorne to win that game. Hawthorne is good, very good team, state championship kind of team. And UC lost a tough one last week against True North down in Miami. UC plays a weird schedule.
Very weird.
Very weird
now,
schedule.
David Penland likes to travel a lot, and they've certainly done that a lot this year, but I agree, UC has played an odd schedule. They'll be in the playoffs, and hopefully all the travel will get them ready for it.
Yeah, and that's why teams like to do that. I know when Corky Rogers was at Bowles, he liked going out of town and playing teams that you're unfamiliar with. Matt Toblin likes to do the same thing where you get a road trip in once a year, and it's a little bit different than the norm which you play. But yeah, Hawthorne to me, again, almost like Madison County where it's the small rural class school. When you look at student enrollment, there's only 300 kids at this school. That's wrong.
Yeah.
That's wrong, because Hawthorne is an elite team. I believe Cornelius Ingram still coaches down there. They are state championship type of team. Same thing with Madison County. And, when you look at the small schools, and that's why I think student enrollment is not always the best way to base things on, because you've got these small schools in Madison County and Hawthorne, and your rural class schools, you can bang with anybody.
Right.
You can bang with anybody.
Oakleaf 17-0 over First Coast. If the scores hold up, now I almost hate to do this because Mandarin's only up by a single point right now over Fletcher at halftime in the Channel 4 game of the week, but both Oakleaf and Mandarin are leading in their respective games. If that continues tonight, that will set up a district championship game between those two. Boy, what a battle that would be between Oakleaf and Mandarin to decide that district champion.
Yeah. And you don't want to get caught in a pickle tonight and lose a game. First Coast and Oakleaf. If you're Oakleaf, you don't want to drop that game, because then you're in this situation. Whoa, my God, we go from front runner district to now. Oh my gosh, we may not be in this district race. We somehow lose this game. And same thing with Mandarin.
Yeah.
If Fletcher pulls an upset off, which they're down 8-7 at the half, suddenly you're in this district that's just thrown wide open. And you felt good going into this week if you're teams like Oakleaf and Mandarin, but a loss in a district, in a district game, suddenly kind of breaks that all wide open again. So that's in the setup you are now. Even if, let's just say, Oakleaf and Mandarin lose tonight, they don't win the district, you're still in pretty good shape to make the playoffs. Just how your schedule is broken down and your strength of schedule and your ratings. But you don't want to have to take the back door into the playoffs. Fletcher loses tonight, you're going to have to take that backdoor path into the playoffs, which is not good at all. And we do have why don't we look at the kind of the teams who are a little bit on the bubble right now in terms of, we're talking about Fletcher. We go to this full screen here and look about these. You got to win, or else you're not going to be in. So Creekside and Atlantic Coast, right now, those guys are 9th and 10th in Region 1-7A. Oh, well, why is that so bad? Well, because the top 8 teams in a region make the playoffs. So right now, the district champion goes to the playoffs. So if Creekside or Atlantic Coast, let's say the season ended tomorrow, the winner of that game would go to the playoffs, even though they would not be ranked in that top 8. District champion in those regions gets that automatic playoff berth. But let's say the loser of this Creekside Atlantic Coast game, suddenly you're looking at, you don't have a path to a district championship card in the playoff to get in there. Now you're going to have to get in there via points, and that is going to be tough. And Fletcher, as I mentioned there, you're in the 8th spot right there in Region 1-6A. Oakleaf and Mandarin are in pretty good shape right now, regardless of what happens and who wins that district. But Fletcher's not. Fletcher is not at all in good shape if they lose this game. You're on the bubble right now. You're in 8th. If you lose this game to Mandarin, which you're down 8-7 at half, you're suddenly kind of scoreboard watching and say, hey, what games on the schedule now do we have to make up some ground in the playoff race? Fleming Island is another one. You've got to beat Beachside. That game was rescheduled to November 4th. You're in 11th place in the region standings right now. Remember, the only teams that make it are the top 8 teams in the region. So Fleming Island, you got to win out and hope things fall the way they break for you in Region 1-5A, or you're not getting in the playoffs. You were regional finalists last year. Riverside, as bad of a year as they've had, they're in 10th right now in the region race. So you stack some wins together. If you're Antoine Nicholas, you win a district championship. You still got Ed White on that schedule. Suddenly that terrible start doesn't look so bad. Other teams here on the playoff bubble right now, Menendez and Bishop Kenny playing tonight. Menendez on that bubble, that cut line right now. You're in 9th. Again, the top 8 teams make the playoffs in those regions. Baker County, you need to beat Swanee. You're probably not winning a district championship, but you're still in the playoffs if the playoffs ended tonight. Jackson, you're not going to win against Bowles tonight, but you're knocking on the door. You're in 9th place in Region 1-2A. Maybe Bobby Ramsey and company stack some wins together. Every win is important. Impact Christian, of course, on a way to a win against Paxton tonight. They're right on that bubble cut line in Region 1-1A. Same with NFEI. You're knocking on the door, and that's why, if you don't win these district games, there's still a path to the postseason, but it is difficult.
So if the playoffs started today, again, those are the teams that need to bolster their case. The teams that are in, and again, there's a lot of websites that do this. I want to give credit where credit's due, and that's the Palm Beach Post. They do a really good job with these rankings here. So Creekside would be in as the 8th. They're assuming they're going to be the district champion. I think that's a fair assumption. They're up 2 touchdowns right now. Creekside will be the only team in 7A in our area as an 8 seed. When you go down to 6A in our area, now 6A is obviously going to be well represented. Right now, as you just mentioned, Fletcher would be in as an 8. We'll see what happens if they lose to Mandarin. Nice would be the 4, Oakleaf would be the 5, and Mandarin would be the 2. So you would have Mandarin, Nice, Oakleaf, and Fletcher, as it stands right now, all getting in Region 6A, or Region 1-6A.
Yeah, and when you look at that, you got Buchholz in that region too, which is state semifinalist the last 4 years. But yeah, when it really kind of gets weird is, let's say Fletcher stays on and hangs in that eighth spot. Okay, Fletcher's in the playoffs, right? Well, not necessarily, because then you look down and let's say a team beneath Fletcher in the rankings managed to win the district championship. Oh, by the way, Fletcher and Seattle Hazen, hey, we thought we were in. Well, the 12th ranked team in the region, they won this district 4-6A or 4, whatever lower ranked team is in there. They won this district. Yeah, they had a terrible strength of schedule and your rating is just 12th in the region, but they get the automatic gold ticket because they won their district. So I've seen those situations happen time and again, and you don't want to leave it to the points, because I've seen teams right on the bubble on the cut line. Creekside a few years ago was famously right on the 8th or 9th, and going into last week, they had an unbelievable winning streak to the end of the year, beat Ponte Vedra in week 11, and they leapfrogged like Pace or somebody, and Pace was furious because they went into the last week of the rankings, and they're like, we're set, we're in the playoffs, we've made it, thank God, and then Pace ended up playing a terrible team in week 8, didn't do anything for their RPI, their ratings points, so they get a terrible week 11 victim on the schedule. Ratings points didn't do anything for it, and Creekside finished strong, and you vault from out of the playoffs to in the playoffs. So you don't want to leave that situation down to the points and chasing into the last weeks. The easiest way is winning a district championship, but there are still paths to the playoffs for teams Oak Leafs, Mandarins, Fletchers, who don't have that, but you got to win down the stretch.
Now, winning a district gets you in the playoffs.
Yes.
Does it guarantee you a home game?
Not necessarily. So it's on paper it should. On paper it should, right?
I think it probably should. There's arguments for and against it, but I'm of the opinion it's a 3-team district and we hate them. But if you win your district championship, you should be rewarded for that.
And a lot of coaches believe that. And the first, I want to say the first year of it, they gave those top 4. But then you've got teams who played a really weak district, and then other teams that played in tougher districts and finished down. So I get the point because
There's
it's almost
pros and cons to both.
Yeah, it's almost like you devalue winning a district championship. The FHC's point is, no, you get in the playoffs. Well, you should, right? If you win a district, you should be rewarded with something, but that's not necessarily the case. So a few years ago, I think I think Bartram was the number 1 seed, or Palm Coast was the number 8 seed, something like that. But the number 8 seed was a district champ. The number 1 seed was a district runner-up. So that 1 seed traveled to the number 8 seed, vanquished the number 8 seed. But it was just kind of weird. It's like, why is a 1 seed traveling to an 8? Well, in a situation like that, a district champ will always host, as opposed to even if you're, say you're a 1-seeded non-district champ and an 8-seeded district champ. Well, the district champ always takes precedence over the non-district champ in the first round only.
And you look at Region 5A, Region 1 5A as we continue, who would be in, who would be out as we enter the middle portion of October. Ponte Vedra would be in as a 5. They're in 5A Region 1. Again, they have a big game against Middleburg. Middleburg right now would be in as the 6. And Beachside would be the 2 right now. Now, their game against Fleming Island got postponed tonight, like you said, to November the 4th. But what a statement for Beachside, a program that's less than 5 years in existence. They would be the 2 seed in the playoffs right now.
And had you not lost to Orlando Christian Prep in week 1, Beachside would be the number 1 seed. Yeah. So you gave that game away on the road. You've recovered. You got Eddie Jordan and Vincent Galello running the ball strong. You'll get a chance to rectify that Fleming Island game in November 4th after the postponement tonight. But yeah, great for Pete Duffy and that team. They have been building and pointing towards this year since they started. Since Pete Duffy started, I'm talking to him last year before the game of the week to Coy Creek, and he kind of said, hey, the kids we've had here since the beginning, they know we still have a lot of room, a lot of runway left on this season, but next season we've really been kind of building up to that, because all these guys that were juniors last year, a lot of those guys are seniors, and man, that you can see that on the field how good Beachside is.
In 4A Region 1, St. Augustine, clearly the number 1 seed in that region if the playoffs started today. From a local standpoint, Ed White would be in as the 4, and Lake City, Columbia, a little bit out of the radio listening area, but certainly they are in the Channel 4 viewing area, would be the 3 seed. Columbia's in town tonight. They're taking care of Ridgeview right now. St. Aug the 1, Ed White the 4, Columbia the 3. Does that seem a little light for our area, for 4A?
A little bit. Those guys met in the playoffs all last year. St. Augustine beat Columbia, beat White. But Ed White has still got to get through Riverside. That I think still will be a tough game for Ed White. That's a rivalry game. Ed White won that game last year, an unbelievable walk-off touchdown with just actually a couple seconds left by Rontrez Lloyd. And I don't think Ed White is a guarantee to win that district. I think Riverside's still got a little bit to prove despite the record. I know Antoine Nicholas is going to have his team ready for it, for that game. And Riverside, again, they're like a 10th seed right now. They can still win a district championship and sneak into the playoffs.
Talk about a fly in the ointment for some teams that are on the bubble. In Region 1, 3A, Rains would be the 1. That's a no-brainer. Bishop Kenny would be the 4. Then you would have Yulee as the 2 and Baker County as the 7, which is a nice turnaround for Baker. They started really bad. They've found some level footing as of late, and they would be in the playoffs if they started today.
Yeah, and that's great for Coach Kennedy out there at Baker County. He took over for Kevin Mays, and I saw them play in the spring game, and they look just really, really young, and they've turned it around. They've really turned it around. I think it started with that win over Baldwin, the 51-48 game, and as of now, they're still in the they're in that playoff chase, and I think Baker County will make it. Not going to get a lot of rankings boost from beating Swanee, But again, you got to win these late season games because these matter so much.
In 2A Region 1, that's Bowles' world and everybody's living in it. They would be the only other local team that would be in if the playoffs started today. Baldwin would be in as the 6.
Yeah, Baldwin and Bowles, and then when you drop down further into Region 2A, you got Bradford down there as well. So that's an interesting situation where I think you could see a Bradford and a Bowles come state semifinal time, which would be a fantastic matchup.
I mean, that's going to happen, right?
It may be.
It'd be shocking if it didn't.
If I think both of those teams are going to get to the state semifinals. I don't think, last year there was Gadsden County and Bowles' way, and Bowles just did not have the muscle. Gadsden County played for the state championship. They're out of the way this year because they had all kinds of violations and everything. But I think Bowles and Bradford, hey, it is not out of the realm of possibility those teams could play for a state championship.
No, and Bradford usually has to deal with Cocoa. And again, I don't know much about Cocoa other than they're normally really good. They'd be the 5.
Yeah, they're down.
Playoffs started today, so they're down.
Cocoa's down this year. I remember talking to head coach Ryan Schneider of Cocoa when I was out in Tallahassee for a meeting on the coach salary situations a little bit ago, a few months ago, and asked him, hey, how you guys gonna be this year? We're young. Yeah, every time you're talking to a championship type coach, oh well, we're not as good as we are. Corky Rogers was famous for always downplaying his team. Hey Corky, how the first day of practice, we're terrible on the offensive line. We don't have any guys. Guys can't block, and offense isn't where it needs to be. So, but Cocoa has been a little bit down. But I would tell Corky, simmer down. Come on, buddy. You're a legend. You've got the guys. You've got the horses. So it was just always funny kind of looking back when you talk to an elite coach like that. They're always down on their teams.
And then finally in Region 1, 1A, I mean, it's loaded with local teams. University Christian would be the 1. Impact Christian would be in the playoffs if they started today. Trinity would be the 4. Episcopal would be the 3, and Providence would be the 7. Well represented in 1A.
Yeah, and Providence just waxed Impact Christian. Yeah. So this is not the strong Providence team that Mo Williams had last year and years before when his son was there and quarterback, and they had a lot more senior guys on that team. This is a younger Providence team, and they took the hammer to Impact Christian last week. So that's a good region because I think Trinity, as down as they've been this year in their 2-4 start, they're still coached by a legend. They still know how to win come playoff time. I mean, they were down last year and they reached the state semifinals. So when you're talking about a down year for Trinity Christian, you still end up playing in the state semifinals. The bad thing about Trinity is you get to the state semifinals and then you get the absolute shellacking that's going to come with Chaminade Madonna. I think it's going to be University Christian or Trinity Christian coming out of that region.
Yeah, Chaminade Madonna is a machine down in South Florida. I remember when that school opened, and right after they opened, they were really good. They've only grown and grown and grown. There's a cool story here locally about the Florida-Georgia Hall of Fame that I want to get to in a moment as well with you, Justin. Before we do that, third quarter action at the Graveyard. Raines 19, Madison County 14, shaping up to be one of the games of the night.
Yeah, and I continue to say it. Raines, elite team. Madison County, very, very, very good team. State championship contender in the rural class. Unbelievable team. And this was a game, this was a test that Raines absolutely needed. You played Lake Mary in terms of your most difficult game, which is a 7A state champ. Madison County, small school, country boys out there, play football. They're physical, tough, nasty at Madison County, and they're banging with Raines tonight. I still think Raines has enough to pull away in that game, but this is the type of test that the Vikings needed.
Still have Nice 7-0 over Bartram. We're going to get back out to third quarter action between Fletcher and Mandarin in just a little bit as well. In fact, they've begun the third quarter out there at the Corral. Fletcher 8-7 trailing Mandarin. It was 7-0 Fletcher. Mandarin scored and got the 2-point conversion there with 50 seconds to go in the second quarter. So if it's not if it's not Raines, Madison County, probably the game of the night shaping up is over on Greenwood Road between Fletcher and Mandarin.
It has turned out to be a really good defensive banger between these two teams, and you almost hate to say the cliche, but whoever has the ball last may win this game because it's a 1-point game right now. It has been tough, nasty, physical out there at the Corral, and this really probably feels like a playoff game to Fletcher because you've got to come away with a victory in this game. You don't want to peak too soon in the season, and you want to continue to stay consistent and thorough throughout. Fletcher's had a little bit of valleys in this year playing the good teams, losses to Nice and Oakleaf, but right now they are very much in this game, still banging with Mandarin, trying to hand Mandarin their first district loss this season, and a huge game. I don't think the First Coast upset that Fletcher needs is going to happen, but man, you could really bolster your playoff case with a quality points win over Mandarin.
And you know, Mandarin, we got a deep ball here. Let's see what happens. You catch that?
Bryson Wright with a snag, and what a catch.
My gracious.
Bryson Wright, we have said his name time and again, and that was Knox Annis from, it felt like the side of 95 is where he threw that ball from, way on the side of 295, where I think he dropped back to throw that ball to, and Bryson Wright grabs it, and what a catch on two defenders in a nasty game.
That play call is, all right, Bryson's down there on one, let's throw it, ready, break, and he's just going to throw it, and Bryson Wright is going to go get it. We are spoiled with wide receiver talent in this area. Bryson Wright at Mandarin, Samorian Wingo of St. Augustine, Naheem Burrows at Bowles, unbelievable wide receivers in our area.
Yeah, and really good. You don't see them this strong usually in the same season like we've got this year. Naeem, Samorian, Bryson. I mean, that's pretty darn impressive to watch these guys on Friday night. And of course, we mentioned Bryson time and again, top player in the 2028 class, not top receiver, top recruit in the entire United States by Rivals recruiting publication in the entire 2028 class, to have some darn good receivers here.
Now, Bryson Wright, class of 2028, nice play by Fletcher there in the backfield. Obviously, Xander Edwards of Bowles, class of 2028 as well. You've been doing this for a long time. Is there a potential between Bryson Wright of Mandarin and Xander Edwards of Bowles to have two of the best players in the country playing in Jacksonville during the same year? I mean, Tebow was great and Derrick Henry was great. I don't know if they had the tag team partner like Bryson Wright and Xander Edwards might be in 2028.
Yeah, and you look at even, back in Tebow's era, there was Tim Tebow, who was fantastic. And then an even higher local rated recruit was C.J. Spiller in that year class.
Union County,
in 2006, and probably a little out of the listening area, but you had two elite recruits like that. You have, in other years, you had C.C. Jefferson, Kevin Tolliver, Derrick Henry's class. You had Derrick Henry, and Derrick wasn't even the highest rated local kid. I mean, Laramie Tunzel was number 3 in the country during that epic class. And to me, that 2013 class with Derrick Henry, Laramie Tunzel, that class, DeMarcus Walker was in it, Daniel Millen, so many good guys in that class. To me, that's the pinnacle of the local recruiting. And, you had the later classes of Kevin Tolliver, C.C. Jefferson, Jeffrey Holland, the elite classes. 2 of those guys were 5 stars. Let's put Xander to the side. I think Xander will probably be a 4-star when it's all is said and done. You got Asher Giddo in that class as well, too, in that 2028 class with Bryson. And both those guys right now, I mean, Bryson is 1, Asher is 9 in the country in the class of 2028. Just remarkable. We just don't have that happen often.
No, a lot of talent in Northeast Florida. So we'll certainly keep you updated on Mandarin and Fletcher. Another high recruit from the past is getting rewarded, and justly so, by induction into the Florida-Georgia Hall of Fame. Brandon James, who was such a great player at St. Augustine, certainly did his thing at the University of Florida, had a cup of coffee in the NFL as well, had a pretty good year or 2 there in the NFL, was drafted and played as a punt returner. He gets put into the Florida-Georgia Hall of Fame. What a career for Brandon James.
Yeah, and I know Brandon pretty well. I had the honor of covering St. Augustine, and when I worked in the St. Augustine Record, the sports editor, many years ago, and I saw Brandon from his first varsity game to the end of his career, and had a chance to cover him. And I remember Joey Wiles' conversation I had with him sticks out as plain as day. Joey said, "Man, Justin, we've got this freshman coming up that had 6 return touchdowns on JV. 6 return touchdowns on JV. This Brandon James kid, he is something else." And I remember saying, oh man, he's not going to be able to do that in high school. So Brandon's first year was 03, was on just a really young team in St. Augustine. Guys, Quentin Hancock, Jaquez Rickerson, some really, really good players on that St. Augustine team. The first year, I know they lost to Clay in the first round of the playoffs, got waxed pretty good, 23-3. 2004, they were really a much better team. They were undefeated all the way to the state semifinals. Of course, we got Bryson Wright there, bringing it down close to the end zone for Mandarin. But St. Augustine in 2004, they were undefeated till they played Bowles in the state semifinals. Brandon James had a couple of rushing touchdowns in that game. They got crushed, though, by Bowles. That's the best Bowles team, best football team I have ever seen in person was that Bowles team in 2004 with Riley Skinner, Rocky Ross, all those guys. But really, really good team. But 05, Brandon James-led St. Augustine Yellow Jackets went 15-0, won a state championship, only state championship in St. Augustine history. Brandon was a starting role. It was funny in the state championship game. I remember him throwing a touchdown pass, and following his career at Florida. You mentioned Seatric Faison coming back to his alma mater and coaching. So Brandon came back to his alma mater. He's now the associate head coach or assistant offensive coordinator at St. Augustine alongside Brian Braddock. So weird how kind of the symmetry of everything. Brian Braddock was an assistant on that state championship team in 05, along with Sean McIntyre, Joey Wiles, and Brandon was a running back. Now Brandon's coaching alongside Brian Braddock. So just so funny how the world kind of works and comes together. But it's so cool. October 31st, he's going to be honored over at the stadium. So Seatric Faison was actually inducted into the Florida-Georgia Hall of Fame a couple years ago. So pretty cool.
Fred Weary, I believe.
Fred Weary last year, yeah. So another guy,
So a lot of local guys getting inducted into the Florida-Georgia Hall of Fame. And I remember, like you said, those Brandon James St. Augustine teams, those Tebow Nice teams, those battles back in the day. And then, of course, both go down and win a couple of national championships at the University of Florida. All right, we take a look at the scoreboard. Riverside is putting the finishing touches on Inglewood. We mentioned a get-right game against Inglewood, but from a Riverside point of view, and I think you pointed it out well, awful start to the year.
Yes.
Not Riverside standards. All will be forgotten with a couple of big victories here in the month of October that could find themselves in the postseason.
Yeah, and you got that Ed White game coming up, and you've got to win that one. There's no that's your season on the line right there. So it's been a terrible season so far for Riverside. I think 6 losses already. That's just unheard of in Riverside time. And you have a chance to not only rectify things in the second half of the season. The cliche is not how you start, it's how you finish, and that's so true with district games. You got that Ed White game coming up. That's a game you feel like in your soul that you completely let slip away from you last year. It was our game of the week, and you lose to Ed White. That kind of helped turn Ed White's season around and say, hey, we may be young, but we've already arrived. And Ed White, the kings of those districts, kind of have to fend off a little bit of that Riverside this year. And Riverside is going to feel like its season is on the line in that game. And yeah, it's a get-right game against Inglewood. You got to win this game, of course. You want to put up a number and work out some stuff, some kinks in there. But man, you are circling the date on the calendar for the Ed White game, district championship game coming up.
Yeah, Superior Fence and Rail brings you the scoreboard update. As we said, Riverside 58-0 over Inglewood. We still have Baldwin 35-0 over Wolfson. I believe that's a running clock right now. Columbia all over Ridgeview. Bowles 34-0 over Jackson. I was just told there would be a running clock there, but Bowles missed the extra point at the end of the second quarter. So they're doing homecoming activities now on San Jose Boulevard, but Bowles in firm control of that one. Back and forth game. We mentioned Baker County, Suwannee. A little bit of a rivalry aspect out there as well. Baker County 21-14 over the Live Oak Suwannee Bulldogs. And the interesting thing there, I know they're a little bit outside our listening area, boy, that Live Oak Suwannee team won 4 consecutive state championships under Mike Pittman. My stepbrother actually played on that Live Oak Suwannee team with Matt Fryer back in the day. Boy, they have fallen on real hard times over there in Live Oak.
Yeah, and I loved covering those Suwannee teams back in when Jay, I think Jay Walls was his name. They played for a state championship against Belglade, Glade Central, back in the swamp back in '99 or so. And you're thinking, man, you could almost get Suwannee back to that golden era when Mike Pittman was there. Matt Jackson played on those teams. Yeah. Really good. Really good teams in Suwannee, and they got Kyler Hall out there now, former Suwannee player who played for Florida State. But yeah, it's been it just hasn't been good in a couple years out there in Suwannee.
Yeah, it's been tough. Lake City, Columbia has continued to thrive, where Live Oak Suwannee has kind of come back to the pack. All right, other halftime action: Oakleaf 17-0 over First Coast, Ponte Vedra 13-7 over Middleburg, and we have Creekside 14-0 over Atlantic Coast. Of course, we've been keeping you up to date on that one. That game is at halftime. As we said, the winner of that game will be a district champion. Actually, we can go back out to Creekside and Atlantic Coast. Again, Creekside up by 2 touchdowns. Third quarter action is underway between Creekside and Atlantic Coast. And look, Creekside's a team that, again, did not start out well. Actually, 21-0 Creekside. They've added another touchdown, so they're in firm control of this, and they are well on their way to the state playoffs.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Bowls game and missing the extra point back in, when I was at the Times Union and we're covering those games. We got to get back on deadline, and you see the dreaded missed extra point, and you score to get to 34-0, and you're like, yes, that extra point's going to trigger that running clock, and then boom. Persnickety, we said at the old Times Union when you missed that. And
for my situation tonight, I'm happy they missed the extra point because I'm going on the radio as soon as that Bowls game goes to an end. So keep the running clock off for a little bit longer.
You wanted to get back to the station or the paper and say, man, a live running clock game, it saved me some time. Oh, man, you get fussy and upset when you're pulling for that kicker. That's when you get Dan DeWong in there to know you hit that extra point to start that running clock because that's the worst thing is a 34-0 score.
Do you like the running clock in high school football?
Yeah, I think
it has to happen, right?
It has to happen. Years ago when University Christian was in its heyday and winning state champions right and left, they had a game where it was 130-0. 130-0. So yeah, there's good reason for the running clock, and especially with coaches and players these days, and want social media highlights and all this stuff. Yeah, I think it's for the integrity of the game in a lot of these situations, and keeps tensions down a little bit as we go back out to this Mander game. The bobbled snap, and Mander picks it up, and wow, how about that? Making something out of nothing there.
Did he score? I think he's inside the 10, right? I don't know if he got in. Let's see. Did they give him a touchdown? I know all right, we think it's in. All right, so Mandarin looks like they crossed the pylon, and if that's the case, if they want to go for 2 here, they might go up 2 possessions. We'll see what Toby Bullock decides to do. But Mandarin, look, you had to figure their depth, their size on both the lines of scrimmage would eventually start wearing down Fletcher. That appears to be where we are in this game in the third quarter.
And Fletcher, to me, is a good team, and I just don't think offensively it has the horses to bang with a Mandarin. And Mandarin is not like a Mandarin of last year. Mandarin had lost a lot of players to transfer and stuff. And look, Bryson Wright is in, looks like for a 2-point conversion, and this game has quickly shifted into favor of the Mandarin Mustangs. Fletcher, I just don't think has the offensive firepower to stick with a Mandarin for 4 full quarters. And Mandarin, to me, was a better team last year because it had more depth. You graduated a lot. You lost guys like Cam Mills. You lost guys like Brian Harris on that defensive side of the ball. So you're a younger, leaner Mandarin team, but still pretty darn good.
You mentioned University Christian. It won't be 130-0 tonight, but Hawthorne, again, having their way right now, 28-8. Hawthorne leads University Christian. Not surprised that Hawthorne's winning the game. You surprised it's a 20-point game in the first half?
Yeah, it was the same score last week at True North for University Christian. They lost by 20. True North was a good team. And again, Hawthorne is, I keep saying it, you can't just look at the student enrollment numbers of the classification. You got teams like that. I mean, Chaminade is another one. You can't just look at those small school numbers and say, man, there's only 200, 300 kids that go here. You are sadly mistaken because you got some elite players at Hawthorne.
We do have a score update from Clay County. The St. Augustine Yellow Jackets at the Clay Blue Devils. What you would expect. Third quarter action. St. Augustine coming off the bye. The number 1 team that we both think is in the area right now. St. Augustine 35-0 over Clay.
Running clock.
Running clock.
Great. That's the best score in high school football is 35. A 35-point differential triggers that running clock. Now, if it's 35 in the first half, the coach who's down can elect to start that in the first half. In the second half, it's 35. It's automatic. So, but I love the running clock. I think everybody in sports media who's done this for a living on deadline loves the running clock, just as much as we love 6 o'clock kickoffs.
And look, for St. Augustine, you're coming off a bye. Obviously, you're a big favorite tonight, but I'm sure Brian Braddock and the coaching staff, Brandon James as well, very pleased they're coming in and taking care of business against Clay.
Yeah, it's as Coach Brian Braddock and those guys would say, I mean, this is a game on the schedule. Yes, you should win this game. Yes, you should name your score in this game and be a running clock. But until you get out there on the field and get it done and take care of it, it's Still a game that you've got to win and treat seriously, but St. Augustine on the way to a district championship and really on the way to possibly a 10-0 regular season too.
And we mentioned somebody's going to get their first win tonight. It appears to be Parker. They're up 14-0 on West Side at the half.
Yeah, homecoming at Parker, and exciting to see Coach Holloway and those guys. You know, they had a little bit of adversity this season where they had thieves break into their field house and steal other stuff before the season started, and the Jaguars are really cool to donate helmets and pads and things that were stolen to the program, and Mike Holloway, blessed to his heart, because, man, he has sacrificed a lot. He's lost Sharon Dorsey, his best friend, former coach at Parker, and he has just continued week after week after week. When you know you're going to get beat, you get your top players swiped from you every year as other teams kind of come in and whisper the sweet nothings in your players' ears. Come play for us, and not a Parker or a West Side. So good for Mike Holloway. He does it with the right heart. He's a great dude, ambassador for the game. Really cool to see those guys on their way to the first win tonight.
As we begin to wrap up this scoreboard, Ponte Vedra has added a touchdown, 20-7 over Middleburg. Again, we were going to find out a lot about Middleburg. I think we're going to find out a lot about Ponte Vedra tonight too. That'd be a good win for Ponte Vedra, and they'll be right back in the thick of it in the playoff hunt if that continues.
And it helps you too for a ratings point stance. Middleburg is 6th, but unbeaten Middleburg. So that's going to be a big win for Ponte Vedra. It probably kicks Middleburg out of that district race. I mean, I don't think if Middleburg can't beat Ponte Vedra, you're probably not going to beat Beachside. So I do think this probably locks up a district championship for Beachside if that result holds.
It is the Friday Night Lights on 4 Plus and 1010XL. Justin Barney of Channel 4, the hacker Ryan Green of 1010XL. We are presented by Farah and Farah. We will come back, do another complete scoreboard update. We'll kind of set the tone on what to come the rest of the night, both on the TV side and the radio side. We're glad you're with us. Week 8 of the Friday Night Lights rolls on, and we'll be right back.
News4Jax wants to be your voice.
You asked the questions that we all wanted to ask.
We're better together.
Shining a light on every community.
To find solutions for affordable housing, to cover important local stories that matter to you. News4Jax and News4Jax Plus, the local station.
Look at these cheeks. Oh my goodness.
At the end of the day, we really want you to feel at home with us.
At any moment, weather can weather. There's no time for delays when school's calling. And the pets need our attention too.
That's why we're keeping you in the know with precise alerts, tracking and pinpointing pop-up showers that can mess with your plans. So you're always ready for school pickup or a quick trip to the dog park. The Weather Authority helps you stick to your routine when the weather weathers. Always watching, always tracking. This is Mel from The Morning Show. She's your secret source for keeping your children safe because she's a champion for families. This is Bruce. His corny dad jokes are no secret.
Kind of shy and won't come out of his shell.
He's your answer guy for the questions that matter to you. This is Jen, making sure you're in the know about scams and recalls. She's serious about safety.
Wearing a helmet, bike helmets, bike helmet.
Together, they kickstart your day right on The Morning Show. Only on News4Jax and News4Jax Plus.
This game just got bigger.
That's how we do it, fellas.
And better.
The energy is contagious.
Because we're back.
It's still a party here on HBCU Go.
And this season,
touchdown.
It's about the grit.
Unbelievable.
The glory.
This conference is anybody's to take.
And the clash of champions.
Every game is our championship game.
The 2025 HBCU Go football season is here.
HBCU Go Football, Saturdays this fall, streaming on News4Jax Plus.
It's all or nothing, no in between. So let me tell you what that really means. Let's start the show, fully charged. We just letting you know it's all or nothing.
We are back with a new season. Join us for a full half hour of scores, highlights, and features on Varsity 4 Football.
Fridays at 10:30. Presented by the accident attorneys at Farah and Farah.
Is this thing on?
What are we even doing here?
It's now football time.
GMFB Overtime on CW17.
I love CW17. It's the Jackson stuff.
It's one of the great stations.
If you miss this electric cinematic moment,
Look at this fan's reaction to what Tank Bigsby just did. Oh, come here! that guy, give him that hug. I love you.
You're definitely a Jags super fan.
5 days a week.
Let's go.
GMFB Overtime. Weekdays at 10 on CW17.
It's time for another look at the high school scoreboard, brought to you by Superior Fence and Rail, where quality matters.
All right, with Justin Barney of Channel 4, the hacker Ryan Green of 1010XL, as we take another look at the scoreboard. Now, 6:30 Duval County games are beginning to get into crunch time, as we're about at 8:45 in the evening, beginning to get into crunch time now, certainly at the Graveyard. They've moved into the fourth quarter. Rains 19, Madison County 14. From a big picture point of view for Rains, you got to like it's a close game.
Absolutely.
They have been destroying teams. This, I believe, is their first game that's in question in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and perfect. Give Donovan Maslin and company this type of performance. You needed that. You don't need the Reebok games where you're winning 53-0 and the Trinity games where you're winning 4. I mean, you need a game like this where a team punches you in the mouth and you have to get up off the mat and punch them right back. This is a game that you're going to see later in the playoffs. This is the type of game you're going to get from a Sarasota Booker or a Miami Central or Northwestern in the playoffs. You need to be hit in the face like this and have a little bit of adversity. Rains has had 0.00% of adversity this year, and you've got to have it. Lake Mary, you thought that would be adversity, 51-3. Lake Mary's not the same team as they were last year. You won to Miami Central in week 1, that game got canceled. This is the adversity you needed. This is the test you needed, and Rains is answering tonight.
Baldwin putting the finishing touches over my alma mater, the Wolfson Wolfpack. They've moved into the fourth quarter, 41-7 Baldwin. I think Baldwin, look, they're going to win tonight. You would assume they will beat Jackson.
Yep.
And they're probably going to find themselves into the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, and I think they're in a good position to get into the playoffs and potentially make some noise. You want to stay out of that number 8 seed because they get you bowls in the first round.
You don't want that.
Anywhere, you can hang with other teams in that classification. So good for Baldwin and company. I think you could finish 8-2.
Yeah, it'd be a heck of a year for Don Velvet. Again, the best coaching name in the area, yes. Coach Don Velvet and Baldwin. We mentioned Riverside 59-0, Bowles 34-0. It's homecoming for the Bulldogs as they're taking care of Jackson. Yulee 28-0 over Fernandina Beach. Again, big-time bragging rights up in Nassau County, and Yulee continues their undefeated streak.
Yeah, I think if my total's off my top of my head, I think they're 15-3 or something like that against Fernandina Beach all time. So did not expect that to be really a close or even competitive game. But anytime you're talking Nassau County rivalry, it's really good. I mean, who cares? West Nassau, Fernandina, Yulee, Fernandina, whatever it is. You get a win over a county rival, regardless of the score, the record, whatever. It's peachy. Hey, give me that. I'll take it.
Nice has added a field goal. They lead Bartram Trail 10-0. Boy, Bartram's found themselves. I mean, they did not get off to a great start. We know they're playing tonight without head coach Corey Johns, as we talked about in hour number 1. Surprised it's only 10-0 Nice right now?
Yeah, Bartram's offense has really, really lagged this year, which is surprising with Arthur Lewis, the big back down there. Quarterback situation has been a little bit up and down. This is not the Bartram team of 3 years ago when you had Lathan Biddle on there and running the ball strong each week. This is a Bartram team that's rebuilding. You struggled last year. You 3 or 4 win team last year, missed the playoffs. So yeah, a little bit surprising, but Nice had lost 2 straight going into this game. So a little bit of a surprise that it's that low scoring, but again, county rival, a lot of underlying tension between the programs this week. So district game, a lot at stake. So a little surprised the score, not surprised Nice is winning.
Some bye weeks come at a perfect time. Nice's bye week came at a perfect time. You had all the issues what we talked about in hour 1 with the coaching. You had lost 2 in a row. You kind of get a week off to figure yourself out, and then now you're up 10-0 on an in-county rival. Again, maybe I shouldn't be surprised by this. I am a little bit. In the fourth quarter, Impact Christian 25-7. They're going to beat Paxson.
Yeah, no surprise there. You're on 2 different levels, I think, as a program. I expect Impact Christian to compete for district championship with UC this year, and you get taken to the woodshed by Providence. That to me was not expected them to beat Paxson. didn't expect them to lose to Providence last week.
You know, we don't have a score update, or at least I don't in a while. I have one from the first half between Episcopal and Trinity Christian. I know a lot of score updates, field conditions, things have been changing, but we haven't talked a lot about Episcopal and Trinity, and that is a district championship game. Now, you would expect Trinity to win that game tonight, but I will say Marcus Wells and Episcopal have put together a nice season for themselves.
Yeah, hey, that's, they're 6-1. The competition hasn't been extremely daunting or anything like that, but good season for them. And it seems like 15 years ago that Mark Brunell was there, right? Seems like a long time, and he led them to their best, the best streak in program history, and Marcus has certainly tried to keep that going, and really good start tonight really good start to the season for Episcopal.
And I do believe Trinity Christian is up by a few touchdowns in that football game. Having said that, Trinity's a team, a young football team. Obviously, Verlin Dormy, there's an expectation out there. When I had him on the radio program last week, he was thankful. He asked me if I had forgotten his number because he hadn't been on a lot this year. I was obviously joking around. But they're going to find themselves in the playoffs. And could they potentially make a run in the
Absolutely.
playoffs?
You saw them last year, as young as Trinity Christian was last year. And I would get on Facebook or on social media, and I would see fans of Trinity Christian call them like the Trinity 13U team, because it was just, they were such a young team last year. And you make the state semifinals in a down year. I mean, that's how high the expectations are annually at Trinity Christian. And when you got a coaching staff like you have there, when you have Verlin Dormany there, you expect that to have that success every year. 9 state championships. You expect to be playing late in the year. So yeah, very, very unorthodox start this year. Unorthodox start last year, and look where they ended up. It's going to be Trinity UC in the regional final for a spot in the state semis.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think they pretty much knew that at media day, talking to both coaching staffs, particularly UC. They kind of knew that's what it was going to be in that region. All right, when you take a look big picture. Now, again, I only have Bradford 7-0 over Newberry at the half. And if that's true, that would be surprising because Newberry's down. That is a Newberry team that beat Bradford twice last year. But again, I have it on 2 different websites. Bradford 7-0. They're leading, but I'm a little surprised it's that close.
Yeah, Bradford's offense is still the thing to me about Bradford that could be their undoing. And their defense, since Jamie Rogers has been there, has been elite. Less than 100 points in the regular season every year he's been there. But that offense, with their graduations over the last couple years, they've just not been able to replace a lot of that offense. If Bradford had an offense, I would say they're a state championship team, bar none. But they just don't have that entire package yet.
As we begin to put the finishing touches on tonight, week 8 already of the high school football season, absolutely insane. What jumps out to you? Again, we got a couple of close games coming down. I know Mandarin Fletcher, the Channel 4 game of the night. In fact, we want to check back in one more time on Mandarin Fletcher over there at the Corral. We know Mandarin was beginning to pull away a little bit. We're also checking in on Atlantic Coast and Creekside in that district championship matchup. Creekside was up 21 at the last check-in here. What has stood out to you about these 2 ball games tonight?
I think both Creekside and Atlantic Coast, I mean, the Knights knew what they had to do. They'd gone out and delivered. Looks like they're about to go up 4 scores here in this game, and really kind of an expected performance there. Actually looks like, 28-0 right now in that game. Creekside well on its way to a 2nd consecutive district championship. In this game, Mandarin kind of the feeling out process early on in this game, and they have the depth of Mandarin compared to Fletcher on both sides of the ball, I think is the big difference in this game. And they're going to be playing for a district championship here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, Mandarin and Oakleaf. Mandarin's up here. Oakleaf is beating First Coast, so that would set up a district championship game between Mandarin and Oakleaf. And that speaks to what we talked about earlier. Both teams will be in the playoffs. But, boy, you want to win your district because that means you're the higher seed, some home games. If you lose Mandarin Oakleaf, you could potentially have to go to Orlando or somewhere in round number 1.
Right, and, we've seen it with Fletcher. We've seen it with First Coast in recent years. You don't want to go on the road. Some of Seatric's best teams since he's been there, you've had to go and play at Tampa Bay Tech. Yeah. You've gotten absolutely swept out of the stadium. So you want to play as I mean, it's simple as anything to say it, but you want to have as high a seed as possible. You want to win. First, you want to win a district championship and lock your playoff spot in. But it doesn't probably look like it's going to happen for Fletcher tonight. But, you know, Fletcher, at this point on, you've got to continue to win out. You're the number 8 seed at this point in that region race, and you've got to just continue to win out. Otherwise, you're going to be 5-3 after this game. You got to win out. If you could finish 7-3, I think Fletcher will make the playoffs.
You see Mandarin breaking off a long run there. Wanted to point out, too, we know about Demario Douglas with the New England Patriots. Yep. I think there's another Mandarin Mustang that will be in the NFL on Sunday. I think Terrell Jennings coming off the Patriots practice squad, going to be on the active roster.
Another good guy who was fun to cover. Big bruising running back for Mandarin. And you know, you've got Carson Beck doing great things at Miami, very highly ranked Miami. He's been a big part of that this year, kind of a bounce back season for him after starting at Georgia and then transferring. And then Terrell Jennings, really a good story. I know all the guys at Mandarin so proud of him, and he's really been patiently and getting his chances in preseason and everything, just trying to make that roster, and he has done such a good job just kind of fighting them. This is not a enviable position. I mean, if you're an NFL guy and you're bouncing around trying to do it, we've seen it time and again with the Jaguars. Nothing is guaranteed.
No.
You could be on the roster one day and in the unemployment line the next. So really cool for Terrell Jennings.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. So congratulations to him coming off the Patriots practice squad, and it appears he will be on the active roster on Sunday. All right, Justin, before we tee you up on your TV, talk about my radio show as well. Big picture scoreboard tonight, what has stood out to you?
Yeah, I think the heavyweights have kind of stood out. You know, you thought Mandarin would win in this game. It struggled a little bit in a little bit of a defensive first half, but it's looking like it's getting on point. Creekside, it's kind of like the chalk across the board has been the story of tonight. You go in knowing what you need to do in this week, and you're going out and doing it. Raines, to me, showing a little bit of muscle there in a game it hasn't been in this entire season, where it's been a little bit of a back and forth kind of game. Raines getting a big test tonight and rising above against Madison County, and of course a Creekside about to nail down the area's first district championship.
Yeah, Raines has added a touchdown. They lead Madison 27-14. Pontevedra beginning to pull away from Middleburg as well. Another touchdown for the Sharks. They lead Middleburg 27-7. All right, 10:30 tonight, Channel 4. What do you guys have coming up?
Yeah, always fun, even though it's going to be a wet highlight filled for us tonight with all of our shooters out at high school games where the mud and the rain was in full effect. But highlights from all across the area, Super 10 updates, looking forward to next week, and just a lot of fun. Play of the night, play of the week, just a fun Friday night. One of my favorite parts of the week is 10:30 Friday night, because we get to talk about what we love and look a little bit towards next week too.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. That's the TV side. I will be on the radio side. I'll head over to the 1010XL studios coming up here momentarily. We should be with you on the radio at about 9:20. I've just been informed Bowles is at a running clock right now against Jackson, 41-0 Bulldogs, but we'll be on after Bowles goes final, and we'll have victorious head coaches all over Northeast Florida. We take a brief look ahead to next week, other big games, other district matchups, as we are now in the middle to late portions of October beginning next Friday, and now is where you really have to dig in for that playoff positioning.
Yeah, and you just saw the graphic pop up on our screen. Our game of the week next week is going to be from, looks like, 2 victorious programs from tonight, the district champion Creekside Knights, and of course the Raines Vikings. Looks like they're pulling away from Madison County in the fourth quarter of that game, so Creekside and Raines will be our Week 9 Varsity 4 game of the week. We'll be dropping in on that one next week. And man, I cannot believe, Hacker, we are already in Week 9 of the high school football season. It has been unbelievably quick.
It has been. It's been a lot of fun. Again, this was really the first weather night. And look, high school football fields don't exactly, some have the best drainage. These guys have to work around it. And to get all of these games in, with the exception, I believe, of Beachside and Fleming Island, kudos to everybody involved for getting these games played tonight.
Yeah, and hey, the Bartram-Nice game, I mentioned a few weeks ago, but Bartram's the best field in the area with the NFL. Built that field from the ground up to host the Patriots for the Super Bowl in 2005. Not every school has that luxury. You know, a lot of these fields that we saw last week at Flagler Palm Coast, muddy and stomped on, and Riverside has a nice, beautiful turf field now. but Riverside had the worst field in the area for quite some time with the pits, and all the athletic teams were using that field. So good job to all the grounds crews and everybody as we look like another Mandarin score right here in our Varsity 4 game of the week. Is that a Bryson Wright touchdown, it looks like?
Looks like they're pouring it on right now.
So Mandarin pulling away from Fletcher after an 8-7 game at halftime, and Mandarin Mustangs look like they are about to put this one away for good. Bryson Wright coming up, looks like maybe a 2-point conversion run here as he throws it, and we have got a 2-point conversion added on to that. It looks like it's 21-7 right now for Mandarin.
Mandarin flexing a little muscle, Rains flexing a little muscle, St. Augustine flexing a little muscle as well. What you would expect from Justin Barney's Super 10 rankings, right?
Yeah.
All your main teams are getting it done tonight.
Yeah, kind of chalk tonight for our Super 10 teams. Nice winning, Oakleaf winning, Mandarin winning, Bowles winning, St. Aug and Rains both winning, Bradford in a tight game at 7-0 at halftime. Of course, Columbia beating Ridgeview. Beachside, Fleming Island pushed off to November 4th, and Ed White playing Sandalwood. I'm sure the Commanders well in control of that one. I can't believe we're almost at the end of our show, Hacker, week 8. I cannot believe we're creeping up on Halloween and Thanksgiving after that, and man, it is going so quick.
It'll be here before we know it. Love the new digs. We'll be right back here next week for week 9 of the Friday Night Lights. We are presented by Farah and Farah. That is Justin Barney of Channel 4. I'm the hacker Ryan Green of 1010XL. Thank you so much for watching, and we will talk to you next Friday night.